When the Night Ends by M.J. Lee. D.I. Ridpath Thriller, Book 8. Read by Dan Bottomley. For the lads, Dave, John and Pete. February 21st, 2018. Chapter 1. Sergeant Tony Saunders glanced at the clock on the wall facing his desk. 3:24. He stood up from his chair and stretched, yawning loudly as he did. Night shifts could be long and tedious as a custody sergeant if there wasn't much happening. Outside the confines of Redbury Police Station, past the automatic doors, the night was as black as a pint of Chester's Mild, and the wind howled through the trees. Sheets of icy rain sleeted down, flooding the roads in pools of water, battleship grey under the neon streetlights. The last dregs of winter were blowing hard, scouring the estates and gardens and houses of suburban Manchester. "Rather be nice and cosy in here than stuck outside in a car. This weather would sink the bloody Titanic," he said out loud to the empty custody reception. It had been a quiet night for him so far. After 21 years on the force, he really appreciated the peaceful times. It hadn't always been like that, of course. As a young copper, he'd been happy to volunteer for a Saturday night shift in the city centre, diving into the various rucks that formed as the pubs and clubs shut, giving as good as he got. Now, in one of the suburban nicks at Redbury, he just hoped for a bit of peace and quiet. He checked the custody board. Just 2 cells occupied. 1 DUI picked up on the M60 with a blood alcohol content level of 0.19%, according to the breathalyzer. The duty doctor was coming in later to take a blood sample from the driver. The other contained some thug who had beaten up a man in a pub. He looked across at the CCTV monitors, each camera showing a different view of the cells, the station and the common areas. The pictures changed every 5 seconds, revolving through the bank of CCTV cameras positioned throughout the nick. So different from when he had started. No cameras then, just more coppers in every station. He missed those days. Life and the police had seemed so much easier. He focused on the cameras in the cells. The driver was sitting on the concrete ledge serving as a bunk, his head in his hands, guilt stabbing through every bone in his body. Serves the bugger right, thought Tony Saunders. He could have killed someone instead of being locked up for the night. Most nights he had a DUI in the cells, and he had no pity for them. Anybody who drinks and drives deserves everything the courts throw at them and more. The second cell, number 4, was occupied by the thug who'd started a fight in a pub and then just waited for the police to arrive, slowly finishing his pint. His victim, a father of 3, lay groaning at his feet with a broken jaw. When the coppers arrived expecting trouble, he just stood up and held his arms out in front of him, saying, "You're taking me to Redbury, aren't you?" He'd been quiet as a lamb when he was booked in, giving his name and address and asking politely to make a phone call to his solicitor. Expecting trouble, Saunders had put him in cell 4, well away from the DUI. He was now in the cell with his back against the wall, staring into thin air. "Can you go and have a look at number 4, Terry?" Saunders used the intercom on his desk to ask the custody detention officer. Terry Rogers, an officer from one of the private security firms so often used these days, replied immediately. "I only checked him half an hour ago." "Well, check him again. He's awake and I don't like the look of him." The CDO muttered something beneath his breath and pushed through the doors leading to the cells, now known with heavy irony as the custody suites. But to Saunders, they would always be the cells. He had lost track of the number of newsletters, emails, messages, pamphlets, refresher courses and quiet words in his ear he had received in the last 6 months on the latest custody guidelines from the College of Policing and his bosses. The last one had been about the use of language, of course. Thugs were now detainees. The cells were custody suites. Lowlife were now customers. It was almost as if his bosses were more concerned about the rights of the criminal than of the victim. The door to the custody area reception slid open, and 2 burly coppers burst in with a small, surly man sandwiched between them, his arms handcuffed in front of him. "I'm telling you, I want to speak to Detective Inspector Britt. Just call him." What's up, Chris? Sergeant Saunders asked the leading copper. We had a tip-off from a local who was dealing out of his car. We stopped him and had a look. Found these. The young police constable held up a large evidence bag full of smaller bags, each containing a crystalline substance like rock sugar. Crack? We think so, Sarge. Has he been cautioned? Yes, Sarge. Saunders stared at the small man in front of him. A stained leather jacket, scraggly goatee and eyes darting left and right like a rat looking for an escape hatch. The man looked familiar. Had he been here before? Just call Mark Brett, he'll sort it all out. Tony Saunders ignored him, addressing the police constable instead. Have you searched him and informed him of his rights? Already done, Sarge. No problems with the arrest. He put up a bit of a struggle, but no real issues. If you call Mark Brett, he'll sort it out, the man said, speaking slowly and enunciating each word. Tony Saunders turned towards the man. Never heard of him, he said. He's National Crime Agency, just call him. The sergeant tapped his computer, opening up a new custody record. Name? Mark Brett. No, your name, Pillock. The man closed his eyes and sighed. Finally, he opened them and said in a bored voice, Ben Holdsworth. Date of birth? Another long sigh. January 12, 1982. Sergeant Saunders checked out the man. He seemed to be standing upright and his eyes were clear and focused. His answers were delivered quickly and without slurring. Address? 27 Church Street, Redbury. The policeman had begun filling in the boxes on the custody record when he realised the address was the same as the police station. Very funny. Address. The man stayed silent, simply shifting his weight from one leg to the other. I'll put down no fixed abode. Mr. Holdsworth, are you feeling unwell, dizzy, or uncomfortable? Would you like to see a health professional? No. Have you taken drugs or any other substances? Another long sigh. No. The man leant forward suddenly. Just call Mark Brett, will you? He banged his handcuffed fists on the plexiglass screen in front of Saunders. The two coppers on either side immediately jerked him away from the custody desk. Right, Mr. Holdsworth. I have reason to detain you under the 1994 Drug Trafficking Act with intent to supply a Class A substance. The voice became a monotone as he recited the words he had said 1,000 times before. I'm going to repeat the caution to make sure you've understood. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention now something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. He paused, waiting for a reaction from the detainee. When there was none, he continued. You have the right to a legal adviser. If you do not have one will be appointed for you. The man remained silent. Is there anyone you would like to be informed of your detention? Again, a sigh. Just call Mark Brett. You are aware you will be under surveillance during your time in Redbury Station. The details are set out here. You also have the right to consult the codes of practice. He picked up the laminated sheet, delineating the various rights of detainees. Please read it and sign on the dotted line. Ben Holdsworth glanced briefly at the sheet before stating, I ain't signing nothing. Tony Saunders made a note of his refusal to sign on the custody record. He added the offence and the grounds for detention before finally asking, Would you like to speak to a solicitor or inform anybody of your detention? Like I've said at least 1,000 times, just call Mark Brett of the National Crime Agency. He's in Warrington. Saunders made a note of the request. As it is now 3:40 a.m., the National Crime Agency offices are closed. However, I have made a note on the custody record and the custody inspector will evaluate your request as soon as possible. I want to call him myself. You have to let me call someone, and as you are not an inspector or higher rank, the right cannot be refused. Tony Saunders raised his eyebrow. We've got a right one here, Chris. Knows his rights?
Sample complete. Ready to continue?